All right, acrylic class. Today we're going to be working on our cute little dolphin picture. And the first thing you're going to do is find whatever you're going to be painting on, whether it's a panel or a canvas or what size you want and everything. And you're going to draw off your little dolphin. And that's a little straight on that side. Oh, goodness gracious. I think it should be more in here, into that panel. Okay. Now I drew a few lines just to kind of help me with the where the shadow of the cone in the head is and where the shadows are. And I drew these little lines down to show which way I'm going to do the white. But you need to make sure that those are kind of light and not super dark. As you're going through, because there are no black things in our background. So after you have gotten your piece together and stuff like that, go ahead and draw off your dolphin. And then if you want to, since we're going to be doing this whole background, you can take the washi tape and line it up with your lines, and then as the lines separate, you just kind of push it over into, so it follows the line. And you can actually tear off little pieces and stuff like that, but it's going to wrinkle like this as you curve around and stuff. That's no big deal. Doesn't have to be perfect because you're going to paint this dolphin on top of the background. This just allows you to be able to go up to the tape and not have to worry so much about the dolphin itself. And leaving that, for he is a little bit different color than the background. You'll notice that the background is a little bit purplier and he's a little bit warmer. So that means he would have just a touch of green to him. Now, I have a bunch of different paints that I have. When looking at what paint to choose, you can hold up a color and you can see this one is very, very purple. It could go for the background if it didn't have so much white in it, which that's the cobalt. This one is the primary blue from Cheap Joe's. It has a touch of green to it, so if I lightened it up quite a bit, it might work well for the dolphin itself. Now this is Ultramarine Blue. Look at all the purple in there, but this is definitely purple. And then this is more blue up here. So to show the deep water from the highlights that are in the water, as long as I add a bunch of white to this and get it down to this color, I think that's going to be a really good option. And then this one is Cerulean Blue. And I think adding a little touch of white to it up here at the top, the highlight parts, not the purpley parts, but the highlight parts, will give a cool and a warm tone to the water. So that's what we're going to be working on today, is just getting our background in and getting him traced off. Now that's going to take you a little while. I already did it just for time purposes, and you can actually come inside the lines a little bit when you're putting your tape down, because you're going to paint the dolphin on top anyway. And I don't like to take more than like a couple of inches, that may be closer to 3, but at a time. But I have a long line to do for this side. Not a lot of curl at the top. So I hope y'all can see how I'm doing that. If you're not able to get that to lay down exactly on a line, like there's a little space right there, then just take a tiny little piece, right? This is washi tape. You can use the, blue painter's tape, the frog tape, whatever you happen to have. And you just want to make sure you press it down really good, as you're working, and don't use a ton of it. at one time. And then this just allows you to be a little bit more freer with your strokes in the background, and it helps you to not end up with that aura, that little white line around, because you were afraid to paint up to the object of interest here, which is our dolphin, and he's pretty cool. So, you know me in the summertime going to the beach and everything, that's kind of like my favorite vacations. And if you need to, if you think you're gonna, you know, go farther into, there isn't any reason you can't put a second row too. So feel free to do that. However you want to, however much space you want to cover, because it's not going to be, you know, too much. Oh my goodness, that's a strong tape for washi tape. Washi tape is usually pretty easily removed. We use it a lot in watercolor, hold our papers down and whatnot. So you've got him covered up. You are going to need to have your palette and your colors. And you know me and the foam plates. It's such an easy one when you're doing multiple paintings all the time. Instead of having to scrape and clean a palette all the time, you know, it is a little bit more, I guess it's just disposable, you know. And I'm going to add the blues that I want towards the outer edge, just like we do in class. I'm keeping these blues next to me in case I need to add some more. And I'm getting low on our white so that I have plenty of space in the middle to mix my colors. Get me some white there. And this is, you know, not much bigger than my finger, you know, it's just a little bit. And I'm going to be using a larger brush to do larger areas. And you can paint this either the light color at the top and then kind of stop about a little more than halfway, and then paint the purpley on, and then use that purple to go on top of the blue, or you can paint the purple all the way up and then put that lighter color on top. It's up to you. I think it would actually use less to do the blue down and then the purple up and then add a few purple strokes. So that's the route I'm going to take for this particular project. So we're going to start with our lighter color. And I'm going to add some here in the middle. I've got a damp brush. You never want to work with a dry brush. Wet the brush first. Get off a lot of the water. Well, go away. And then I'm going to add some of the white. I go from one side of the white to another so that I can get on this side to go with the dark color. If I just kind of scoop down the middle, I put color into the white really quickly, and then that just kind of dirties up the white. If you can see what I'm talking about, I scoop from this side to mix with this color, and I'll scoop from that side so it keeps the pure white kind of in the middle in case I need that for any particular color. You need to mix up quite a bit of this color, but at this point it's just you're trying to match the color that's in the top of the picture, and you don't have to worry about streaks in this. So if you get some streaks, that's okay. It's going to look like water. You can paint the sides if you're using a canvas, and see, I can paint just right up to the dolphin, up to the tape, and not have to worry about going into the dolphin. I mean, you don't want to swipe all the way across, obviously, but as he's just a little bit different color. So if you've made up plenty of the paint, you can paint your edges as well. There's a little piece of something. There it is. Let's get rid of that. So that you have a completed piece. If you're using a panel, you don't have to worry about this too much, but even on the sides of a panel, it looks nice to paint that if you're not going to use a frame. The light color stops about where his eye is, but you don't want to have to try to mix this exact color again. I mean, even though it's water and it's a little flecky and stuff like that, it would be fine to, you know, if it was just a little bit different color. But you want to try to make sure that you get all of the little white flecks. That's where the canvas is showing through the paint, and when acrylic dries, it kind of, you know, draws up. Y'all have heard me say that all year. So make sure that you use enough paint to cover that up and to get the canvas covered up so you don't have to try to mix and retouch up your background and stuff. Remember, always clean out your brush. Obviously, you used that towel before. Before you go to your water, I don't know if y'all can see my water up here, but I have two, one for cleaning out my brush, and then one for getting fresh water to go into another color. We're just using blues for this one. It's not as important to have two as if I were using red and then green or something else to, you know, that would make just a muddy color for my water. And then when I use that water, and I wonder, why is this looking muddy, you know? That's that little piece. I don't know what that is, but we're going to get rid of it. All right, now we're going to mix the bottom color. And you can obviously tell this is way too dark. I have a wet brush, but it's not drippy in any way. So I'm going to pull out some of that color, because you don't need all of it at once. And you're going to add in the white a little at a time until you get to that color. Now this is very cobalt looking at this point, so see how purple that looks? So we definitely need to add more blue. I don't know if y'all can see me off camera mixing this color or not. And this is the kind of purplier color. So you can see that we're getting closer to the color at the bottom. Mix whatever colors you happen to have with you. I'm adding a little bit of the top blue just to add a little, took a little bit of the blue just to make it look like the water kind of belongs together. I like to mix those colors, and it gives me really, really close to what color there is. Now when that dries, it's actually going to blend a little bit more, but it's a little bit more blue than this pale kind of a cobalt color. So I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way up both sides of the dolphin. And you can see the streaks happening in the paint that's got a little bit of water into it. So if you're showing too many streaks, just make sure next time you don't add as much your brush doesn't have as much water into it. So as we come up to the top color, you're going to want to create these little striations, and they're not perfectly straight or anything like that. So we're going to make the two meet, and then we're going to add in some of these little wave type marks. And I've got a lot of paint here in the middle of my brush, and it's hard to make a thin line when you have that. So let's just move that paint. I'll put that dirty side of the brush there. You're going to have some of them come off of the Dolphin. Some of them are long, some of them are short, some of them end within the middle of I may end up having to put a second coat on this just because I can see the little white parts because it's a little bit watery. So we're just going to put us in some little striations. They're really tiny at the bottom, and then they get larger and larger, so you're going to hardly have any stripes here at the top. So as you're coming up, you just kind of want to make sure they're not straight across, and you know, you can even make some that have like a little hole in them, or you can soften an edge, and so it's not so hard. I'm just pushing my brush against that paint so it's just on the tip in order to do these. They can go kind of uphill a little bit, and they can go, you know, just perfectly across. They can be thick, and they can be tiny. So just kind of follow the pattern that you see on here. You don't have to sit there and count every single one. You're just kind of making up some fun water parts. And you can even just kind of swish some color from the side. Making this, making these little marks. Some of the ones at the top are really fuzzy, so if you want to, you can actually just blend that in. If you have a soft bristle brush, a really big fluffy brush, you can do that with, you just want these to have the longer, but you can actually just kind of soften those colors in. Don't wet this brush, or you'll pick up that blue from underneath. When you're blending with the brush, you want it to stay dry. Okay, you might get a little bit of paint on it, but we'll wash that off later. So let's just get us a few more of these on this side. There's hardly any. I'm just barely touching the surface up here. It's not as dark as the ones on this side. So I'll get a few darker ones here. This would be kind of a good experiment one to do the dark all the way through, and then paint the light on top, and then do it this way and see which one you like better. Art's kind of fun with all the experiments that we get to do. So you're just adding in a few little soft spots here at the top. I'm going to blend that one in. There's just a few. You can bring it down the sides if you want. So like if you wanted to, you know, bring some of these to where it looks like it's following the pattern all the way around, you can. So get a little bit of that on the top. Don't you love my finger brush? I do that so often. Just kind of a soft blend. Just use your finger. Okay, so any of these you want to soften an edge, you can just go with your dry brush, right? And just kind of soften those edges out. Well, that one may be a little too dry already, but I can put a little bit of paint next to it and soften those edges. And then it's going to blend into the dark on the bottom. Oops. You do want to make sure you use enough paint, thick enough paint to cover up all these little, you don't want any of these little white spots to show through when you're done. You want that all completely filled in. So even if you have to do a second coat, you need to check that before you start painting your dolphin. Because then once you paint around him, once you take this tape off, it's a little bit harder to just be a little, you know, kind of slap happy with the paint and stuff. It is a little bit harder to stay without getting any paint inside your dolphin. I'm just kind of blending in some of these colors. Oh, I just cleaned that brush. Well, I won't be able to use that one for dry brushing for a little bit, but I can already see there's some white streaks down here. So I need to put that on nice and thick. Paint the sides and the bottom. Going to paint a few of the striations going off the side here. And then this side. All right, you found what you're going to paint on, whether it's wood, canvas panel, canvas, whatever you're working on. You have chosen your colors, you've drawn off your dolphin, you've taped off your dolphin, and got paint on the bottom there, so I'm gonna just lay a towel down so it doesn't get all over my table, which I need to resurface anyway. And you've gone through and softened. I have some of these big ones that are soft. Softened any edges you want into the background. You may have to add a little bit more paint if you want to soften an edge. And you're just lightly stroking some of the, oh, I touched the sides. Whoops, wrong brush. And you've created your background. So that is your first lesson on the dolphin. So we're going to start lesson 2 next week. And we're going to actually take off our tape and paint our dolphin itself. But keep working on your little streaks and you're softening until you're really happy with what you have on your paper. I mean, on your canvas or whatever you're working on. There is canvas paper. I don't know if any of y'all have ever worked with. I have some up at the school and in my classroom and stuff. And this is one, it's just Canson's brand, and it's just acrylic sheets. It's textured like canvas would be, but you can tape it down to a board, just like we do drawing or colored pencil or whatever. It's fairly cheap, especially if you're practicing a technique or something. It's really good for you know, not using up all of your canvases and stuff. It is once you tape it to a board, it's going to be a hard surface. So it's not going to have the, you know, the give that a canvas, you know, has, but the bounce, some people call it a bounce that the canvas has, but the benefit and that it's being so cheap and everything, it is a great resource to have, you know. Just go ahead and get you some just to practice with and stuff. It's kind of a staple in the classroom. So we're just I'm just softening some edges. I'm just barely touching the canvas so that the marks don't look so strong. And I definitely want to soften this line right here on the sides. So I'm just barely touching, and the paint that's on here is kind of, there's not a lot of paint actually. So just kind of where this looks like it blends into the other one a little bit better. And then I'm going to soften this. This is not the softest brush, but remember, water is your, is your eraser in acrylic as long as it's still wet. So if you want to come in and take anything out of an area that you think you've got too much, you want a little bit more of that blue, just add a touch of water, just a touch. That was too much because it went all the way through that blue, because the blue was painted on today as well. So it is definitely a little wet. See if I have any of this left. So I'm going to paint a little bit of that blue in there. I may have to go back and touch that up. All right. Well, get your background in and come back next week and let's do our dolphin. All right. Thanks, guys.